What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with Samsung Galaxy A21s pros and cons. So let's get started. So these are my pros and cons about the Samsung Galaxy A21s. The first thing that I want to mention is that I'm going to start by going through all the different pros, and then after that, I'm going to go through the cons. And I have my top 5 of each. Now, in general, I really do like this phone, so to many of you, the cons that I point out might seem like a bit of nitpicking, and that is partially the case. But I did still want to mention the cons because there are certain things that I want you to be aware of before you get the phone. But let's first start off with the pros. So the first pro with the Samsung Galaxy A21s is the really massive battery. Now this device features a beefy 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery. That is a very large battery. In fact, one of the biggest batteries of the A series as far as I'm aware. So you're gonna get really good battery life with this phone. And in addition to that, you're gonna get a lot more longevity out of the battery itself, because as the battery degrades over time, it won't be quite as noticeable since the battery is already massive. Compared to other devices like the iPhone SE 2020, where we're getting a really tiny battery, any sort of battery degradation is going to be very noticeable. So that's not going to be quite of an issue with the A21s. Now, of course, there's no way to get around having less and less usable battery capacity as time goes on, as lithium-ion batteries get weaker and weaker the more you use them, but you're not going to experience the negative side effects of that quite as much with this device. Now, the second pro with the device is the really awesome camera setup that we're getting. So the first thing is that we're getting a hole punch front-facing camera, and the camera itself is 13 megapixels. Now things look really nice in general. I'm very happy with it, especially for a phone in this price range. But also on the back side of the device, we're getting a quad camera setup. So we're getting a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So a lot of cameras here with this phone. And the good news too is that with the rear cameras, the results are very nice as well. Here's how things look with the standard camera, so nice and crisp and clear. We can then switch over to the live focus portrait mode, which of course works the best when there's actually people in the frame. And then from there, we can go over to the ultra wide angle camera, and you can see that we can fit a lot more content here into the frame. So this is excellent if you are traveling, for example, and you want to take pictures of things in your surrounding, maybe buildings, scenery, all that stuff is going to look great with the ultra wide angle camera. But also, in addition to that, it's really good for taking group photos. And then if you go over to the More tab, we can then get over to the macro mode, and this is made for close-up pictures, so you can get extremely close to objects and have them be in focus. So in general, I feel like the A21s offers some of the best cameras and photo taking abilities of any device in this price range. And that's definitely a really nice thing. I know nowadays people are taking tons of photos and videos with their devices to post on social media, so you're certainly not going to embarrass yourself with the results taken from this phone. Now the third pro with the Galaxy A21s is that we're getting a fingerprint sensor on the back. And in addition to that, we're also getting face unlock. Now, in 2020, less and less budget devices seem to be offering face unlock, and while most of Samsung's budget phones do offer it, again, they're one of the few brands that still is implementing that into their phones, and the A21s does have face unlock. But the fingerprint sensor is also very fast and responsive, so I'm a big fan of using that, and the placement of it is very convenient. So in general, I'm very satisfied with the fact that we do have a fingerprint sensor. My fourth favorite thing about the A21s is the RAM that we're getting with the phone. So with the device, we're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM. So that's very impressive. While there are some other phones in this price range that offer that level of RAM, there's a lot that also don't. So 4 gigs of RAM certainly does make a difference, especially nowadays as apps are hungrier and hungrier for using up your RAM. So having 4 gigs certainly will make a noticeable difference. In general, the performance is pretty decent. There is some room for improvement, which I'll mention in the cons, but at least they gave the phone 4 gigabytes. In addition to that, we're also getting 64 gigabytes of storage, so that's a lot of internal storage too. So just like how apps are using more and more RAM, apps are also starting to use more and more storage. I'm sure you've already seen how much space apps like Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram take up. I don't know why or how, but it seems like they take up a ton of space on all of our mobile devices. So having 64 gigabytes of storage with the A21s certainly will come in handy. And finally, for the last pro with this device, and there are many other ones too, but these are the main ones, and that is the very large display that we're getting here with the phone. Now this device features a massive 6.5-inch display. So it's going to be great for watching video content, especially because it's going to be a nice, big, immersive experience. So I am very happy that we're getting a big display here with the phone. Let's now get into the cons about the Samsung Galaxy A21s. These are the worst features, in my opinion, about the phone. And the first one is the relatively large bezels. So it might not seem like the bezels are too big with this phone until you see another device from Samsung, such as the Galaxy A51. You can see that the A51 has smaller bezels all around in general, and in addition to that, just a side note I wanted to mention, you can see that the actual front-facing camera is even smaller too. So I wish the A21s had the body of the A51, but unfortunately it does not. You can see the bottom bezel is also a little bit on the thicker side. You know, nothing too bad here, but still, there is room for improvement. The second con with the phone is that we're not getting an AMOLED display. Now, the A20s from last year didn't have an AMOLED display either, but the A20 from last year did. And another strange thing too is that the A21, the non-S model, also has a non-AMOLED display. So I'm not sure why Samsung seems to be downgrading the display quality with these new A21 and A21s phones, but that is the case. Now that being said, the display does still look nice here. It's not terrible or anything. It is 720p, but in general, it looks decent, and I like that we're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio. And as I mentioned earlier in the pros, I like how large the display is as well. I just wish it was AMOLED. That would have made a big difference. The third con about the Galaxy A21s is that there's no 4K video recording. Now that might not be too important for many people out there, but as time goes on, more and more people are going to have 4K displays, whether it's on their computer or their regular television, and it's really nice having at least the ability to record in 4K. And other devices that really aren't too much more expensive, like the A51 for example, do give us the ability to record in 4K. So I really wish the A21s gave us that ability, but unfortunately, video recording does max out at 1080p. My fourth con with the A21s is the processor. Now the phone comes with the Samsung Exynos 850 processor, and it's not the worst out there. In fact, the regular A21 has a worse processor, but it also isn't extremely powerful either. I really wish they would have given this phone the Qualcomm Snapdragon 665. That's the processor that the Moto G Fast has, and that phone is exactly the same price as this phone, but it is a lot faster, hence the name of that device. So I wish they would have given us the 665 from Qualcomm. It definitely would have resulted in better performance in general. And you can see with the benchmark scores here with the phone, they're not absolutely terrible, but also at 124,538, that's nothing too special either, especially when the 665 devices that are literally the same price are giving us scores closer to 200,000 with the benchmark. So it definitely does make a big difference having a better processor, and I wish they would have given us a better one here with the A21s. And finally, for the last con about the phone, there is no NFC with the device. I really wish we did have NFC, especially nowadays as more and more people are using their devices to make payments. And it just seems like a step back to not have NFC with the phone. And also nowadays, companies are moving more in the direction of making money via software and services. And if Samsung would have given this phone Samsung Pay, I think it really would have paid for itself. And it really wouldn't have cost Samsung too much extra because they make money off Samsung Pay. So by people using Samsung Pay with this phone, it would have probably made them a profit at the end of the day. And in addition to that, it gives the device another selling point. But unfortunately, there is no Samsung Pay with this phone, and there's also no NFC. But those are my pros and cons, best and worst things about the Samsung Galaxy A21s. In general, I do like the phone. In fact, I think it's better than the regular A21. But again, there are some shortcomings that I'd like to see addressed in the successor to this phone, which I suppose would be the A22s, which won't be out for a long time from now. But if Samsung's watching this, hopefully they'll take some of the advice I offer in this video and make the next model a bit better. Of course, if you do want to have some of these things addressed, like a better display, smaller bezels, even more storage actually, then you might want to also consider the A51. In fact, if you get the A51 factory unlocked, this device is not too much more expensive than the A21s. I believe it's like $70 more, but you are getting a way better device in general. But I'll be doing a dedicated comparison between these two phones in a separate video, so I'll save a lot of that information for that particular video. But I hope you enjoyed this video about the pros and cons about the phone. If you are interested in seeing the most up-to-date pricing for it, I do have a link to the unlocked variant of the phone in the video description. But again, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.